Part second, memoir of Khanjan Malikzai. Dear readers, this is really a true story. Every word is true. Believe me, this is heartbreaking for myself. Even if when I'm reading this, I feel bad how I could survive these atrocities and tyrannies during these last 15 years. It is not easy. Every night, every moment, psychological pressure and economically, and also all sort of human technology made, and during these 15 years they used against me. Right now I don't know, but refer to my knowledge that chemicals didn't use in my bed and in my food. This is kind of liberty I got, and I understand how it was hard that time, and now also hard, but not very hard like it was. But anyway, this is really true story and my memoir. I will read myself. Reader Khanjan Malikzai, 31st of August 2015. Ukraine, Odessa. UNEST Hotel, room 1106. As I mentioned, this is the second part, and if you read the first part, for you will be very easy to follow this. And okay, this is you and the real story of misery of a family. Jehovah's Witnesses came to our business in Odessa to preach. I saw them several times in our restaurant, but I did not have time to talk to them. I remembered when I was in the 4th year of university, we studied a subject called scientific communism. We studied as preview Christianity, as a person who was born and raised in Muslim society. That time, we did not know much about the conception of Jesus Christ as the Son of God. I was also asking the questions to my professor in the subject of scientific communism. He explained to me one day that he was a priest and became a communist. I asked him about the concept of Jesus Christ as the Son of God. He explained me the conception of Trinity. When I had time, I studied the Bible. Every day I had more and more interest and questions about Jesus Christ, the Son of God. One day while I was studying the Bible, I found my answer. For example, who was the father of Adam? It means that Adam's father was God. God created him. Later I learned it means that Jesus Christ was the first creation of Almighty God, Jehovah. For example, the Bible says or states Colossians chapter 1 verse 15 and Revelations chapter 3 verse 14, and also Proverbs chapter 8 verse 22. We came to Canada on May 2nd, 2001. At the beginning, we lived on Morgan Crescent and Fennel Avenue. The next year, we moved to East 25th Street. My son moved from Sherwood Elementary School to Linden Park Public School. The organized crime had not reservation for kids and adults, and their policies no respect for human. Satan and his team every day bother us, torture us, humiliate us. Every day I picked up my son from school and asked him about his schooling. One day he told me in 2003 that he had problem with other kids. I asked him about the nature of his problem. He told me that the kids were calling him names. I was thinking the bullying problem existed everywhere in the world. The next day I went to school and talked to his class teacher, Mr. Errol. He promised me that he will keep eye on him, but in reality, international criminals were involved. A couple weeks later, Mr. Errol informed me that a commission is going to come from the School Board of Education, as Rahim is a smart guy and the school will recommend him for the test as talented kid. Rahim time by time told me that the kids calling him names during breaks time next to the next to the lockers. I went again and again and again and again and again and again and again. I talked to Miss Hens, a French teacher. She was a goddess of a person and very nice. My son had not problem during the French classes. At that time, even I did not guess that our family had a serious problem, and behind all Rahim's problems, standing immoral and heartless adults who are going to design for him future, and later you will see how they put doubt in his personality, and you will see the participation of a false cult of Christianity, Jehovah's Witnesses, was involved to the destruction of my family. During the elementary school years, every 2 days I was talking with my son's teacher about his education and his problems. I did guess that my other children who were at Westmount High School and Hill Park High School had very similar problems. Later we will talk about them separately. One of my son friend Thomas Poor, through organized crime, played another vicious tactic with whom my son was friend through video games and on other way of putting psychologically pressure on him as a teenager. And his friend Tom Poor, his classmate had done a good job. Thomas Poor got instruction from adults to put doubt in his personality. When my son Rahim was graduated from the elementary school of Linden Park Public School, I was happy, and he moved to Franklin Road Middle School. During all the times we were attending Jehovah's Witnesses Sherwood Congregation, Limerick Street in Upper Gage, and these ungodly people, or the most unreligious people in the world, were working to destroy my family and cooperate 100% with organized crime and team of Satan. I remember that one day I was out with Bob Lewis for preaching, who is an elder. Right now he died. I believe he was an honest man for preaching work about the God's kingdom as Jesus recommended. His disciples, Matthew chapter 28, verses 19 and 20, during preaching work, he told me that we came to Jehovah's Witnesses to dishonor Jehovah's name. I told him, look, what Jehovah's Witnesses give to his members? No money, no power, and you have to preach voluntarily. At that time, I didn't know. Some people became Jehovah's Witnesses will have some benefits and pleasure. Refer to their opinion, they created a paradise in their congregation. My assumption now is Bob Lewis was telling me what the organized crime team told him. A person like me who had a Muslim background converted to Christianity and preaching about God's kingdom without any material gain and pleasure. I agreed with his assumptions, partly that he does not have any information about Afghanistan and about the rest of the world. At the moment, I did not know that member of my family affected with their falsehood. Very soon my daughters became victim of their falsehood. I will explain to you and the other part of this story. You will be amazed this ungodly people when they are going to show their real satanic face to their victims. In the month of October of 2006, I talked to Rahim. He told me that he had the same problem. I went to his school and talked to Miss Lixon, the principal of Franklin Road Middle School. She promised me she will find out, and later I learned that Rahim had problem where the lockers are. Every day when he came back from school, I asked him about his schooling. One of our neighbors who was from Iraq, Kurdistan, was his schoolmate. My son told me that he also is calling him names. I was very frustrated and immediately went to his house, which was located to the opposite side of where we were living, East 25th. I knocked their door and his sister, Miss Marianne, came out. Then her father, Muhammad Yusuf, came in. I talked to them and they apologized, and later my son Rahim told me that that guy did not bother him anymore. In reality, the adult people who related to organized crime were playing a professional games with our 5 members of our family. It was Christian holidays and Rahim was at home. At the meantime, the organized crime, beside this game, they poisoned my food, my bed, and day by day the pressure was from each side, and these professional criminals with the defender and the government at the high ranks and all of Hamilton communities against just 5 people with expenses of millions of dollars, including those guys from Divided and Rule. Worked very hard. With the money and the pressure, some of the members of family betrayed the other family members with the help of false cult Jehovah's Witnesses. In January 2007, soon the school began. My son Rahim went to school after a couple days. He does not want to go to school. I was raged and went to school and talked to Rahim's teacher, Miss Peter. She promised me that she will go to the bottom of his problem. In February 2007, I learned from Rahim that he was removed from his class and put him with guys who are lazy in special class. I went to his school, talked to Miss Peters. Somebody at school privately told me that she had not right without parents' permission and information to change the class of the student. She had again and again promised us she will help Rahim. Rahim was crying and did not want to go to school. I went to school again and talked to his teacher, to Miss Peters. I asked her if it is possible for Rahim to stay at home to get some homework, and every week, one day, he will come and bring that what he has done. She told me we have to bring to her a doctor recommendation. The next day I went to Upper Wentworth Walk-in Clinic and took Rahim with me. When we arrived in Walk-in Clinic, the doctor Lalik told me that he wants to talk to Rahim privately. After a couple minutes, the doctor told me that Rahim had feeling several times to kill himself. I was shocked. I was really frustrated and I was down to ground. I wrote a letter to the School Board of Education, to Mr. Chuck Reed, the superintendent of the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board of Education, which I never received answer. The letter contained was the following. Dear Ms. Chuck Reed, the superintendent of Hamilton Wentworth District School Board, this letter is to express concern and to ask for help on the issue my son's bullying. My son Rahim Malikzai is the 8th grade student of the Franklin Road Public School. It was in the month of October of 2006. At that, I noticed my son frequently not wanting to go to school, the reason of which I could not figure out. After many questioning, that my son confessed that he was being bullied. I immediately made an appointment with his class teacher, Miss Peters. At the end of our conversation, she said that she will investigate by January 2007. My son's feeling about going to school and did not change. The only thing I did was force him to go to school. So in January I went to see Miss Peters to ask her the result of her investigation. Miss Peters' response was that no bullying was happening. It was really a big lie. And that if anything was happening was Rahim's fault. I have a hard time believing my son to be a belligerent boy, and just because my child is male and not female does not mean that cutting words and demeaning gestures do not hurt him. I also would like to mention that I visited with the principal of school, Miss Lixon, and her response was that she will take care of it. Obviously, like I said, nothing changed. I have no more solutions. As the time went by, I noticed my son's mood getting bad to worse. He was anxious, and all the time he could not sleep. At the end of April 2007, I took him to the Hamilton Wentworth walk-in clinic. Rahim saw Dr. Lalik one-on-one. My son told him that was being emotionally, verbally abused and sexually harassed. He also mentioned that even though he told to Miss Peters on several occasions, she did not pay attention but ignored his complaints. Rahim confessed to the doctor that when his mood is lowest, he has feeling to kill himself. Dr. Lalik diagnoses him with depression. Having overview all occasions, I would like to ask you to take proper action against this matter. As the highest responsible person, School Board of Education in Hamilton, please take to consideration, sir, if your son was in the same situation, what do you do? Concerned Father Khanjan Malikzai, December 22nd, 2007. And finally, Rahim graduated from his school, and some of the member of our family recommended him to go to the Westmount School, where particularly his personality was destroyed. Rahim, during his elementary and middle school years, he wrote every day a memoir, and his mother would like to destroy them. His notebook was in the recycle box. Somehow I was able to pick them up. Privately, I kept it. I hope one day I could show them to public in media. The organized crime and the false cult and the team of Satan, the false cult Jehovah's Witnesses, changed their tactics. The Wentworth Walk-in Clinic made an appointment for Rahim with the pediatrician Dr. Marshall. The walk-in clinic made an appointment for Rahim with the pediatrician Dr. Dan Marshall. The next week, Rahim went to see Dr. Marshall. Rahim saw Dr. Marshall one-on-one. Dr. Marshall prescribed an antidepressant drug, Celexa, for him and recommended behavior become to be final uncertainty and his personality. In the meantime, I tried to find a clinical family therapist, child and adolescent service in the city of Hamilton, and made an appointment with Mark Ferdinand. Dear readers, I recall a saying which is very famous in the East. A person who escaped from the wolf and reached the shelter and met a very dangerous poisonous snake. The devil and his team worked in our family very hard, and what I saw, I could not believe it. Rahim's mother was against him, not openly. Later, I understood that in Brooklyn, New York, United States, the governing body of false cult of Jehovah's Witnesses in Georgetown, Canada, Ontario, had an agreement with her to destroy her children and husband life. Rahim's mother called her mother in Georgia, in Republic of Georgia, and asked her mother recommended she should do what the organization of false cult is saying, and she was instructed falsely the interpretation of the quotation of Jesus Christ that Luke chapter 18 verse 29. Jesus Christ said to his disciples, he said to them, "Truly I say to you, there is no one who has left house or wife or brothers or parents or children for the sake of the kingdom of God. This ungodly people convinced Rahim's mother what is doing. This is biblical." Before making an appointment with Mr. Ferdinand about 6 months earlier, I saw him in London, Ontario, in one of the assemblies of Jehovah's Witnesses. During our appointment, I asked him that is he one of Jehovah's Witnesses? He answered that he is a Catholic. Then I asked him, did he attend the Assembly of Jehovah's Witnesses in London, Ontario? He said no. I saw him very closely there in assembly. At the time, I didn't know him. Anyway, he lied. At that moment, I did not suspect of him anything. When the time passed, he recommended Rahim to buy a toy through internet. That toy which was not allowed for his age. Later, I understood from right to left, foreign organized criminals and Satan's team with false cult with those money and power put doubt in his personality. When I saw this situation of Rahim, my son went from bad to worse. I was like an injured bird, did not know what to do. I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister Stephen Harper and other instances asked for help. Nobody came to help. I got a very strange email from Mr. Harper office, a secretary, to the following text. Dear Mr. Malikzai, I am pleased to acknowledge receipt of your correspondence to the Right Honorable Stephen Harper. The Prime Minister has asked me to convey his appreciation for the request of a meeting. Regrettably, due to other obligations on his schedule, he has asked me to refer the request to the Minister of Health, the Honorable Leona Aglukak. I will therefore be forwarding the invitation and information that you have provided to the Minister's office. Once again, thank you for contacting the Prime Minister's office. Sincerely, Deborah Campbell, Director of Tour and Scheduling. Copy to Minister of Health of Ontario, Ms. Aglu Kak. I was amazed by the Prime Minister's office. I was asking for help in the sense of involvement, breach of human rights, and the life of a group of Canadians were in jeopardy, and the Office of Prime Minister referred me to the Health Minister. I knew that I have a health card and I can go to see a doctor myself. And why? Anyway, thank you, the Prime Minister's office, for answer to my letter. Most politicians and the governmental system did not answer letters. In the meantime, in Hamilton, I went to Children Aid Society of Hamilton. Everywhere was Satan team with Satan, and Canadian democracy ashamed himself day by day. I got an appointment with a worker of Children's Aid Society, Miss Rahil Imami, Iranian-born Canadian. She did her best, but she was under her boss' command and her abilities were limited, and soon I learned that I went for help to Children's Aid Society, which was not a good idea. I did not know at 2008 the worst is coming. Rahim went to Westmount Secondary School. Some people told me that this school is under the direct supervision of RCMP. It means RCMP means Royal Canadian Military Police. At the beginning I was happy that this factor will help Rahim, but our experience showed the opposite and my efforts were insane. The Hamilton Devil and Satan team was more powerful. At Westmount High School, a social worker and guidance counselor were working with Rahim. The social worker introduced Rahim to an organization called Linwood Hall, Child and Family. It was the organization Linwood Hall Child and Family Center, and I went with Rahim there and met a worker, Miss April Cow, family support worker. All these organizations, every one of them played with us and like a soccer ball passed us to each other. All of these organizations had one thing general: try to their best to make sure our life should go down, and to some extent they were successful. The Westmount High School vice principal, Miss, I forgot her name, but she was a nice person and she helped what she could. She would like to go to maternity vacation and she was replaced by Mr. Morrow. I remembered when we came to Canada in 2002 of May 2001 that what hope and plan I had for my family and for myself. I believe that the time that Canada is a country of equal opportunities and you have to work hard for better life, but our experience showed in my case it is not true, and all my imagination was insane. We were in a situation that I had to fight the devil and the rest of the world. If I was alone, I could succeed the devil, but in some degree I did not have much control of the life of my children. I was desperately looking for the solution. One day I went to Mr. Morrow, the vice principal of Westmount, and was asking his advice that I would like to move to Ottawa. When he heard that I want to move to Ottawa, his eyes changed and became enraged and told me, "Can you escape?" At that moment, I thought, I wish to cut his throat. Somebody's child in difficulty and he does not want to be safe. I was surprised and shocked that Mr. Morrow is working with children at school and he is so cruel and heartless. All the time when I remembered him, seems to me he was not from Canadian education system, because his hair cut and speaking resembled to a jailer. not a teacher or any other staff member who is working at school system. The next step is more seriously. I made an appointment with psychiatrist Dr. Rod Evans, who is specialized in adolescent psychiatry. Shidduch Hospital. As I mentioned earlier, beside psychiatrist, Rahim needed a therapist. I tried to change therapist Mr. Ferdinand's, and I asked Dr. Rod Evans if it is possible in the same hospital, Shidduch Hospital, to find a therapist. Still, I believe that Dr. Rod Evans was a professional psychiatrist and a person with conscience. Time by time, he would like to escape the appointments. In 2003, I had an appointment in downtown at Antari Works on Houston Street 1. In that years, not now. Now the address is changed. It was about 1:15 p.m. I was in a hurry to watch a soap opera of Bold and Beautiful. At the traffic light at James Street and Yonge Street, a Jeep Cherokee had stopped on the second lane, and the traffic light that time was red, and I was in the third lane, and had that time the street was one way. A speed about 45 kilometers. When I arrived very close to light, this Jeep turned left, would like to stop me, tried very much to avoid the accident. The distance was very short and the accident occurred, and from my car 2 doors has been thrown to the sidewalk where is the TD Bank branch. I stopped the car and went to see the Jeep driver. He asked me, "Am I all right?" I told him, "Yeah." He called 911. We were waiting for 30 minutes. The 911 did not come. He gave his card, and on the back of his card he wrote, "The accident is his fault," and I got that 2 doors of my car, went home. In 2008, I had 3 accidents in 1 month, 2 of them in Mohawk Road in Upper James. In both accidents, I was stopped in the red light, and none of those accidents were my fault. Beside these accidents, I avoid hundreds of accidents in many places. Many people whom I know, some people are saying I have luck, and some people believe in God and are saying that Almighty God had saved you. I assume that all these accidents were organized by organized crime and team of Satan. In the wrong place at the wrong time. Many people are familiar with the passages to Canada. I was invited to the first presentation of the organization in the city of Hamilton. After the presentation, the manager of this organization, Ms. Tina Eden, had encouraged me to be a member of this noble organization, to what I immediately agreed. The Passages to Canada has a duty to find newcomers who have, in their opinion, an interesting life story. These people will be a role model for other newcomers. After the presentation, we were invited for a dinner. There I met an Afghan, Mr. Taraki, and we took food and were sitting together. Mr. Taraki, a nephew of former President of Afghanistan, Nur Muhammad Taraki. He did not finish his food and he left. He left the venue after a couple minutes of his departure. I got a very strong headache, and somehow I was able to manage to drive home. I did not know who put something in my food. I cannot tell you. The next accident. Hamiltonians are familiar with strengthening Hamilton Community Initiative. I was volunteering in this organization for more than 2 years. When the project was completed, for goodbye of manager of the project, Miss Catherine King, the city of Hamilton gave a banquet, and I was invited. In the venue, most dignitaries of the city were invited. Mr. Larry Delaney, mayor, appreciated the work of project and especially how Miss Catherine brought the Hamilton communities more together and the sense of understanding after 9/11. In reply to Mr. Delaney, Miss King thanks Miss Delaney and the city of Hamilton for guidance and cooperation in her very hard task. The banquet was held at the Bay, and the food was really good. When I was standing and held my dish, I started to talk to a person who was standing next to me. First of all, I introduced myself and asked his good name. He told me that his name is Ron. I asked him where he's working. He told me he is working with Hamilton Police. A couple minutes later, he left. I did not finish my food. I felt terrible pain in my head, similar headache like in the dinner passages to Canada with Mr. Taraki. Immediately I went to the washroom. I had feeling to vomit. I washed my face with cold water and left the banquet. I drove home myself. When I arrived at home, terrible headache that night I could not put my head on the pillow. And all night I was sitting. I got some juice and until the next day at noon I had headache. The next day I went to Strengthening Hamilton Community Initiative to see if I could find Ron's name in the list of guests. I asked the secretary of Miss Catherine King, the project manager. She gave me the list of the guests, but the name of Ron was not on the list. I think maybe he lied about his name, or as a police officer he came like that. The life experience is saying that military and police officers can be defining by their physique and haircut, and most importantly by their conversation. And Mr. Ron talked like an officer. One disappointment after another. In 2003 and 2004, I was volunteering as a community organizer in the Strengthening Hamilton Community Initiative. During my volunteering, Maxine Carter, she gives several lectures about the human rights in Canada, especially in Hamilton. In 2005, I believe that Miss Maxine Carter possibly could help me to solve my problems. I called her and made an appointment. On the appointed day, I went to her office and we talked a lot. And I asked her if it is possible through her office to make me an appointment with the RCMP, Royal Canadian Military Police. She kindly accepted, and she told me she will call me back. In a couple days, she called me. The next day I went to her office. She asked me, is it possible she likes to accompany me in my appointment? I told her, like now I'm telling you, I have nothing to hide, and two of us, we went to our RCMP office at the Main Street 100. When we arrived at the RCMP office, after a while, we were invited to inside the office. The in-charge officer asked me my ID. I presented to him, and he asked his secretary some technical language that I could not understand. After 5 minutes, the secretary came and gave to him a kind of letter and left. During our conversation, I told him that some people are following me. He told me they are not from their office. And the only thing he would like to tell me, my wife. And he added, you are not under surveillance of RCMP. I was little happy that I'm not under government surveillance when the time passed and the problems had increased. If the Canadian securities agencies are not responsible, who are behind these things? If they are foreign country agents, how they can so easily navigate in Hamilton and Canada? Several months passed, and I would like to make an appointment with RCMP again. I went myself to the new location of RCMP in Stony Creek. When I arrived there, I introduced myself to the receptionist, and he told me I should wait. In 15 minutes, all the workers of RCMP came out, and they, like military parade, they have passed me. I found that I came to in the wrong place at the wrong time. The next day, without any appointment, I went to Maxine Carter's office, who is in charge of equity and access for the city of Hamilton, kind of human rights organization in Hamilton. She kindly accepted me again, and I told her what happened. Kindly accepted me again, and I told her what happened in RCMP in Stony Creek. In a very polite way, she told me she cannot name the person who is behind of these atrocities and problems. I asked her again, why not? She said, if she tell me, Canada will be ashamed. Then I left her office, and in the end of 2005, I was hired by the Department of National Defense of Canada. I remembered the quotation of Winston Churchill, the great thinker of the human history. We do not have another choice not to be an optimist. Until today, I am optimist that one day the justice and democracy will take over the evil, and I will take those Satan team and their criminals to justice. First interview 2005. I got a letter in December 2005 for an interview for the job of being a cultural advisor. The location of the interview was in Toronto. I must be there at the day of the interview at 9 a.m. Remember that day was very chilly. When I arrived at the location, it was about 7 a.m. I could not park my car in the parking lot of D&D, At that time, it opened at 8 o'clock. Next to the building of the National Defense in Toronto is a gas station, and the gas station had parking. I drove there and parked my car there as weather was very chilly. I did not turn off the engine and the heater was working. I was reading a book inside the car. It was around 7:45. Two SUVs came to the gas station and all passengers, third car was Volkswagen Golf 1000cc Germany made, and Volkswagen Golf turned around and came on reverse very quickly close to my car. It was about 1.5 meter or less, and from it is exhaust of this car came out kind of smoke as the engine of my car was on and the heater was working. After a couple minutes I felt kind of choking. I realized that what's going on. Immediately I opened the doors of the car and turned off the engine of my car. I got off from my car about 10 meters far away, went at that cold weather. I was coughing, and 10-15 minutes later I returned to my car and left the gas station and parked my car at the parking lot of the National Defense on the other side of the road. My interviewer was Miss Michelle Ray, and later I understood she is the supervisor of interpreters of the National Defense of Canada. Before and after the interview, I did not mention anything about the incident because it was outside of the National Defense property. Hardship everywhere I went. Why? During the Afghan Civil War, many Afghans fled from Afghanistan to neighboring countries. Most of these refugees went to Pakistan, Iran. In 2005, I would like to visit my sister and brother who lived in Peshawar, Pakistan, Hayatabad. I did not see them more than 20 years. At that time, I had not Canadian citizenship. I held an Afghan passport with permanent residence card. Before going to Pakistan, I applied for tourist double visa in Toronto to the Pakistan consulate. The Pakistan consulate gave me a single visa and they refused for a double visa. I purchased already my ticket, and my relatives in Pakistan and Afghanistan were waiting for me to visit me, to see me. I purchased my ticket in one Pakistani travel agency in Hamilton and Main Street, and the agent asked me, do I want a kosher meal? That time I did not know much about the kosher meal. Most of Jews are serving that kind of food, kind of halal in Islam, maybe somehow very similar. My flight was Toronto, London, Islamabad, and the return was the same way. On the day of the flight, I took my passport, ticket, and suitcase and went to the bus shelter, 25th Mohawk, Upper Wentworth. I was waiting for the bus, and a bus came and did not stop. I did not have time. Went by taxi to Go bus station. When I arrived in Toronto, took the shuttle to Pearson Airport. My flight was at 8 p.m. When I arrived at the airport was 4:30 p.m. At 5 p.m. the registration started and I went for registration. The airline attendant asked me my documents. I gave to her my passport and ticket. She asked me, do I have with me my PR card? I said no. She told me she can let me go, but on my return to Canada, I will have a problem in Pakistan and UK, and it is good to go and get your permanent resident card. I had 3 hours to get my permanent resident card from home, from Hamilton. I found a taxi to drive me to Hamilton and back to Pearson Airport. I had an agreement with black African Canadian taxi driver to pay him $200, go from Pearson to Hamilton and come back to Pearson. As you know, 5 p.m. from Toronto to Hamilton is rush hour. And when I arrived back in Hamilton, it was 6:20 p.m. And a hurry, I took my PR card and went back to Pearson Airport. When we came to the exit of the Pearson Airport, the taxi driver missed the exit and we went to Toronto and from there went to Pearson Airport. When we arrived at the airport, it was almost 5 minutes after 8 p.m. I was late and I missed my flight. Now I understand that black taxi driver was part of Satan team. I talked to attendant. She told me if I came just 20 minutes earlier, she could help, and anyway I missed my flight. I believed the taxi driver intentionally missed the exit. Logically, how is possible for a taxi driver from Pearson Airport to miss the exit? I was very upset. Then I went to N and the airport. Tomorrow I came back to the airport for the next flight. The last minute ticket was like $5,000. Of course I did not purchase and I came back to Hamilton. I lost about $400 for rebook my ticket. My families came from Peshawar to meet me in Islamabad in the airport. And I was not able to inform them that I missed my flight. The difference of the time between Pakistan and Toronto is 12 hours. I called my relatives the next day. They were already in Islamabad. Peshawar, Islamabad, 5 hours drive. And I booked the next flight in 2 weeks. When the day of flight arrived, after getting the boarding pass, I called my relatives in Pakistan and told them the exact time of my arrival. The plane off to the destination of UK on time. When we arrived to Heathrow Airport was 7 a.m. My departure flight to Pakistan was at 7 p.m. I should be in the airport for 12 hours. I did not sleep last night of my way to London, and the next night also I will be in the plane. I wanted to sleep so much. Most of passengers inside the airport only can sleep on the couches. I found a place and went to sleep. Maybe I slept for 20 minutes. I woke up and the damn chemical was used on me. used on me and sit up in my place and coughing. I did not know what to do. In Heathrow Airport, there is bathroom you can take a shower. I went there to take a shower. A very funny rule for the showers. The shower is free, but the towel cost is 10 pounds. Next to these showers, there is an airport a room for worship of all religions. Most passengers from third world countries, they are going to take shower. They have their own towels, because if somebody going many times in the same way, they know what to do. I went to take a shower and little bit relax, and after couple hours I would like to sleep again. I went back to a corner and found a couch. I lie on the couch. As you maybe know, in Heathrow Airport, there is in that years there was certain area that passengers can smoke, but all the smell of smoke is coming to all over airport. Finally, the time of my flight came and our plane to Pakistan, Islamabad departed. And our plane, after 8 hours flight, landed in Islamabad. I was for 10 days in Peshawar. I went to the police station to get a re-entry visa because I would like to go to Afghanistan, and for re-entry I will required to go to Pakistan consulate in Afghanistan. I was thinking that I would like to have a time in Afghanistan to go for re-entry visa to Pakistan consulate. It would be not spending time. It would be better to get re-entry Pakistan visa in Peshawar. I went to the police station. They told me it is impossible, because if you have a visa in Pakistan, if you didn't leave Pakistan, you cannot get re-entry visa. One of my relatives told me, let me talk to the police officer privately. And 5 minutes later, he came back to me. He said, they will give you a visa. You have to pay $200 privately. I agreed, and they told me in 2 days I should come back at the appointed time. The visa was ready. The next day the visa was ready. When we arrived in the police station, the police officer, when he saw me, and he was like a very close friend, called me, Consap, come here and your passport is ready. The next day I went to Afghanistan. It is 1.5 hour trip by car to the border. And the border, most people crossing the border, nobody check the document. I went to the office of the border. Most foreign citizens doing this. I was waiting about 30 minutes, then came to the Afghan border.